The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Gee, thanks for unmuting us this time. Ladies and gentlemen, it is live on the W2M Network to tape, we think, here for the Kickoff, episode 6.2. My name is Harry Broadhurst. Welcome in, everybody. Joining me, as per usual, are my co-hosts, Brandon Biskobing.
Hey.
Stephen III.
What's going on, world?
And our traditional producer, Erik Watkins.
Hey. Wait a minute. Why do I feel like I've done that before?
We're having deja vu.
This is a sense of deja vu all over again.
hello, 50 million hellos.
Let's moose it along, people. All right, the voice you just heard was that of our actual producer, the man on the ones and the twos, hopefully not muting us this time, Sean Garmer.
You know, I can do it again if you want.
I would prefer not to have to start the show a third time if that's all.
Let's not have take 3.
There were some technical difficulties here at the Kickoff with our first attempt at this, so we're going take 2. Luckily, it'll give us a chance to kind of tighten up everything that we did on our first episode, while I didn't reveal any of the major topics that we usually have in our later segments. So, with that being said, gentlemen, we are a presentation of the W2M Network. You can find us online at W2Mnet.com, where you can find podcasts and articles and reviews on all things from wrestling to video games to soccer, which, by the way to blow it, USA, to...
Don't even get me started.
So much. Yeah, really. I'm sitting here.
Hopefully at least one of my other countries will get in this year.
I got England going for me, so I got that.
I know I've got Germany. I'm hoping for Ireland.
Germany is a traditional soccer powerhouse, so, go Germany for me. Yes. So, in addition, like I said, football, wrestling, soccer, video games, and so much more in the worlds of entertainment and stuff. You can find all that over at W2Mnet.com. I'll be plugging more specific stuff as far as W2M goes a little bit later on in the show. But for now, gentlemen, let's get back into this again. Let's try this a second time with our studs and duds. Erik, you start.
Okay, now, let's just flash back. No, not 10 minutes, but a few days ago instead. Everybody was hyping up a certain Pac-12 game where a certain ranked team was on the road, and a certain producer said that said ranked team was vulnerable for upset, and I felt, no, they've got it in the bag. Well, look at who was right. My stud in honor of that this week, Luke Falk. 24-42, 282 yards, 3 touchdowns, 33-10 win against the Ducks in my not-so-favorite neon yellow uniforms.
Oh, speaking of ugly uniforms.
Oh, the Ducks.
Yes. Quack, quack, quack. They played whack, whack, whack. Okay. Speaking of uniforms, did you guys happen to...
Okay. Did Harry just die or something? What happened?
I lost Harry.
Take 3.
Somebody go on with your studs and duds, I guess, since Harry.
Okay, I'll go with my stud. My stud for this week is Khalil Tate, quarterback from Arizona. I'll stay in the Pac-12. 327 yards, 4 touchdowns in a win over Colorado. And a little side note, that game was a big running game as Philip Lindsay of Colorado was second in rushing. Khalil Tate was first in rushing with the 327 yards, and Philip Lindsay was second in rushing in the NCAA with 281 yards and 3 touchdowns. So in a Pac-12 that is normally known for their passing, this week in that game, both teams had very dominant rushing games. So a big running game in that one, surprising for the Pac-12.
Hey, offense is offense no matter how you get it. It just makes the games go faster. Which, late at night, I'm not opposed to.
So my stud for the week is Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers quarterback, if you don't know that by now. We said this before, and we'll say it again. Dallas left Green Bay too much time. Minute 13, way too much time for Aaron Rodgers. He came into clutch, though. With 11 seconds left, he threw a game-winning touchdown to Devontae Adams to break the hearts of Cowboys fans. I was hoping my Cowboys would go 3-1, start 3-1. That would have been great. But we are now 2-3, and we are going to our bye week under 500. Thank you, Aaron Rodgers.
I did say that it was going to be a 2-2 start to the season. I just kind of expected that without Zeke Elliott. So, yeah. Don't know what to tell you there. Now, going into my dud for the week, okay. Jaguars fans, I know you have a lot of hope. Don't. Okay? Ben Roethlisberger, 33 for 55, which is kind of decent. 312 yards. Good. 5 interceptions. That's bad. 2 of those interceptions being returned.
Very, very bad.
That's worse. Ben, don't do this. You know the Jaguars and Steelers have had a long history. You know what a win like this for them would mean. The fact that they went up to Heinz Field. They're now sitting at 3-2. Don't. Stop it. I don't want to have to hear any more weird stories about any sort of belly flopping contest in the parking lot of Everbank. Once a year is enough. Please, Ben, don't do that.
Yeah, my dud for this week is Trey Sermon from Oklahoma. Only had 144 total yards. I think had about 70 or 80 rushing yards. I know it was under 100. And had 1 fumble loss in Oklahoma's loss to Iowa State. So that is a very bad game. Oklahoma, the whole team was bad, but he has to get a special mention because of just they could not get anything going on the ground in that game, and that hurt them a lot.
My dud for the week is Mitchell Trubisky. He got his first NFL start against the Vikings, and he completed less than half of his passes for about 168 yards. I didn't like him coming out of North Carolina. I felt he was a little overrated. Yeah, he threw 30 touchdowns. That's awesome. He played 1 year. So we were going before Chicago drafted him. Everyone was saying, "Oh, he was going to be a good quarterback." No, 1 year. It was 1 year. I want to see what he does in the NFL. And after one start, he's not showing me anything.
To be fair, it's his first start, and it's against Minnesota. So
yeah, Minnesota,
and they almost still won the game.
Exactly. The Purple People Leaders defense. Lest we forget, that game was 3-2 at the half. Not to mention, they did the same to him in that game like they did in the preseason. So he really wasn't expected to set the world on fire. Just one game. It's not terrible.
Well, for this week, he is a dud, and they almost beat Case Keenum. Not that big of an accomplishment.
Case Keenum, he's had some good days himself now, so I can't complain. But the fact that they brought him in, why Sam Bradford was starting, I have no idea. Clearly, he ain't 100% right.
Apparently not. So I guess we'll move on now to So That Happened, our new segment here on the Kickoff. And we started off by talking about how Arizona traded for Adrian Peterson, who was doing nothing in New Orleans. I'm going to ask you guys now, how do you feel about the move?
Well,
Yeah,
Chris Bronson, don't go tweeting out stuff because that'll likely come back to bite you. We've seen that happen before over the past couple of weeks. It's good to where he's a good fit. He's almost a David Johnson style, just much less of a receiving threat. I like the move because, my God, Carson Palmer needs help.
Yeah, I like the move as well for that reason, but also because the Cardinals got Adrian Peterson, who I still think if he's put in the right system can be a very good running back. He's getting up there in age, but he still can be a very good or at least a, above average running back in the NFL. And he's getting traded from the Saints, who were basically not using him at all. We've seen his outrage at Sean Payton during week 1 when he wasn't hardly being used at all against his former team, the Minnesota Vikings. And that really hasn't improved at all over the past couple of weeks. And, the Cardinals pretty much got him for nothing. They traded a 6th-round pick for him. So, they definitely came at, as long as Adrian Peterson can show over the next couple of weeks that he can be a good running back in the NFL still, and can still, I don't think he'll be that top guy that we saw back in, 2008, 2009, 2010, but I still think that he can be a serviceable running back and help the Cardinals out immensely. So definitely a big win for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I like the move. I love the move. Chris Johnson wasn't running. He hasn't been the same since the season 2K season of 2009. He hasn't done anything. I haven't seen much from him since. And with David Johnson being out for the next month or so, maybe 2 months, with a broken wrist, they needed to do something. And Adrian Peterson it was like a puzzle. The pieces just fell together because Adrian Peterson wasn't doing anything in New Orleans. Arizona needed somebody. You'll add 2 + 2 = fish. So there you go. I like the move. I think Peterson will do very well in Arizona. And to Eric's point, Carson Palmer doesn't need help. The Cardinals need help getting rid of Carson Palmer because he is clearly the issue. And they need to draft a quarterback in April's draft. That's another story for another time. Now it's time for Brandon's favorite part of the show where we talk about the New York G-Men. Oh, what a game against Los Angeles Chargers, in which they lost 27-22. All 4 of their top receivers got injured. Odell Beckham Jr., out for the year. Sterling Shepard, he left the game. Brandon Marshall, out for the year. Dwayne Harris, out for the year. Brandon, what are your thoughts on all these injuries, and how do you see the Giants playing moving forward?
I'll talk about this a little bit more and get it together, although, actually, you know what? I'll save get it together for something else because the Giants have no chance of getting it together at this point. So, yeah, the Giants, they're, at this point, considering you lost all your wide receivers, I hate to be this negative, but at this point, just look at the draft. At this point, it's a little too early to be calling this, but it is pretty much the I-80 race for the number 1 overall pick. And for those of you who are not very good with geography, I say the I-80 race because it goes from New York all the way out to San Francisco, and on its way it passes by Cleveland, which are the 3 0-5 teams that are left. So, those 3 teams, I think, are the main contenders for the number 1 overall pick. I know it's shocking for the Giants because in the beginning of the year, before the season started, 3 of the 4 of us on this panel said that the Giants were going to make the playoffs. So, it is absolutely astounding that the Giants have had this big and this drastic of a fall from grace. I know it's not completely their fault because obviously you can't control injuries, and a freak week like this where you lose your entire wide receiving core in one fell swoop, there's no coming back from that.
I hear Terrell Owens reached out to them.
Yeah.
Don't start with me, Harry.
I'm back.
With me. Oh yes, that's quite a way to come back. But yeah, this.
I figured. I mean, if ever a time for me to chime in here, if you guys don't mind, real quick, what did I miss? Why my internet decided to take a crap?
Why don't you tell us your studs and duds?
All right, my stud is Leonard Fournette, which I'm sure Eric will appreciate. 24 carries, 181 yards, and a pair of scores, leading to Jacksonville's 30-9 victory over Pittsburgh. Granted, Pittsburgh did a lot of that to themselves, with Big Ben having arguably the worst game of his career. I'm sure Eric talked about that.
Yeah. At least we know our general manager has some sense and can draft and do free agency well, so there's something. But offensive line, quarterback, can we kind of get those next, please and thank you?
I think Jacksonville fans are giving up on Blake Bortles too quickly. I actually think Bortles has a ton of potential. He's a way better pick than.
With that.
You have a ton of potential after this many. Oh, come on now. Come on.
I'm not a fan of Blake Bortles anymore.
I'll be entirely honest with you. I would rather have Blake Bortles in my backfield than Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, I agree with that.
Given today, it's a coin flip.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
My dud is former Tampa Bay kicker Nick Folk. Congratulations, buddy. You cost your team the game. And you cost yourself your job in the process.
You cost yourself a job.
Well done. Very well done. Tampa Bay loses 19-14 to New England on Thursday Night Football last week after Nick Folk misses 3 field goals, one of them inside of 30 yards. How do you miss a 30-yarder? Okay, I am not a kicker. I've never been a kicker. I will never be a kicker. I will never be confused with a kicker, although I kind of do look like a lost Grammatica brother with my pouch. That being said, how do you miss a 30-yarder? What kind of NFL kicker misses a 30-yarder? An unemployed one, apparently.
Well, especially now because a 30-yarder is the extra point.
33, if I'm not mistaken, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and again, I've seen kickers miss 19-yarders.
I believe that's the NFL record for the shortest field goal miss is actually 19 yards.
Well, I mean, with 19 yards, you're looking at probably having to chop at something serious from one of the hash marks. This was a 28-yard dead-on field goal that he pulled left. Hello, unemployment. Thy name is Folk.
Hey, not entirely unemployment. The Tampa Bay area has some wonderful car dealerships that I'm sure one of them would love to have them.
Hey, Harry.
Sure.
Hey, Harry, considering how you came back into the conversation, would you have to say that kick was a bit wide left? No, I mean wide right. Sorry, wide right.
The kick was missed to the left, and my team has 3 wins this year. Brandon, hush.
So was mine. So what's that?
Yeah, anybody whose team is under 500 doesn't get to talk smack. Womp,
Yes,
womp, womp, womp.
I'm out.
All right, so everybody got their studs and duds in. I'm assuming the Giants discussion I came back into is part of So That Happened with the Odell Beckham Jr. thing.
The first thing we were talking about was Adrian Peterson trade.
All right, yeah, and that's where we kind of got stopped the first time we did the show, so I'll give my thoughts here real quick. Congratulations, CJ2K. You completely put your foot in your mouth. Peterson should get more carries. Well, he'll get them in Arizona, and you won't. Bye, Felicia. What a fall from grace, though. This is a 2,000-yard running back a couple of seasons ago with Tennessee. He can't hold his own now.
Yeah, I said that before. It's crazy. I mean, he was such a huge commodity just 5 years ago, and then it's like the hype got to him when he, the first year, that year when he was supposed to be the number one overall pick in everyone's fantasy draft was when he finally started to fall.
Yeah, well, it's not the first time a 2,000-yard running back has had a fall from grace. Just saying.
I mean, 5
Very
years
true.
is a long time. Let's
Hey,
not act like that's
I will
nothing.
have Eric. I will have you know the juice is loose.
Oh boy.
I'm just saying. Apologies to any member of the Goldman family who may be listening to this podcast. Anywho, before I get myself into even deeper crap than I did, one of the things that I listed in So That Happened we're actually not going to discuss because it ties into my buy or sell questions, so I'm going to skip over that here. Hey, Eric, a question. Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
Let me just say one more thing about the whole Giants thing, real quick. At this point, like I mentioned, focus on the draft, but I think at this point, you need to be in selling mode. They need to start selling some pieces that they can use to get either draft picks or, other guys to look forward towards next year.
See, that's not really as big. That's not really as big of a thing in football as it is in, say, baseball, where once your team's out of contention, you start selling off your big pieces.
That's true. I'm mostly a baseball guy, so I think in baseball terms.
But I will say this, for your little I-80 reference, 2 of those 3 cities you mentioned, that highway and a neighboring highway, didn't have to deal with an earthquake. So just keep that in mind.
I'm not even going to touch that. I get the reference, but it's so far over my head in the fact that I was like 3 years old when it happened that I'm not going to touch that. Moving on. Yeah. Hey, Eric.
Yes.
So you're at a college football game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're at homecoming for said college football game as well.
Uh-huh. These are the big times. Seniors get recognized. It's a very festive atmosphere.
Your team scores 68 points.
Hey, you're partying. You got this in the bag. You get to go home, have a couple extra drinks or whatever, see where the night takes you. Yeah, you're feeling good.
You lose in 7 overtimes.
Wait, what? Hey, yeah.
Welcome.
Go to that one guy in that one room on campus, because I'm going to need something stronger.
Welcome to the world of the Mid-American Conference, ladies and gentlemen, where former New Year's Six participant Western Michigan decides to spoil Buffalo's homecoming, defeating the Bulls 71-68 in the highest scoring overtime game in college football history.
Boy, it's Buffalo just cannot catch a break now, can they?
Well, their NFL team is 3-2, so I mean they got that going for them.
What's with Upper New York State college teams and having very long overtime games? First Syracuse with the 6 OT game back in 2012 against UConn, and now Buffalo.
There's something in the water in New York.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it definitely is. That's what makes our pizza so delicious.
And it's weird because the other 2 7 overtime games were both in the SEC. I wound up watching both of them. It was weird.
This is only the 4th game in NCAA history to go to 7 overtimes. And as I said, the highest scoring total for a team to lose a game in NCAA history as well for Buffalo. Congratulations, Bulls. You screwed the pooch on this one. Did you know this game actually could have ended in the 3rd overtime? I did a little bit of research. I read the ESPN article about the game.
Now, I'm wondering, what was the score in regulation? Because when this
30.
happened... Go ahead.
I have the answer to that. 34 up.
Okay, so it's not like what happened in 2001 with Eli Manning and Ole Miss against Arkansas. That game was 7-7 at the half, tied at 17 at the end of regulation. Ole Miss wound up winning 58-56.
Wow.
Yes, on a broken up 2-point conversion pass, no doubt.
Or a stopped 2-point conversion run, depending on circumstance. Either way.
No, that one, it was a pass broken up at the goal line. Ay. That was a weird night.
Anywho, I'm curious as to how you score 68 points and lose. Like, how bad does your defense have to suck?
Well, again, look at the NCAA's overtime rules. I mean, one big play and all of a sudden you potentially give up a touchdown.
Oh, we're going to be talking about that shortly, Eric. Don't you worry. All right. Brandon, are you back?
Yes, I am.
Okay, because I saw the notification thing told me that you dropped from the call for a second, but I wanted to wait until you got back, so I was going to stall for a few moments until you did so. But now that you're back, we can go ahead and move on. I guess just gentlemen. I was going to say ladies. I'm a little out of it, okay? My tablet decided to crap out on me in the middle of a show, and it's not the first time it's happened. It throws you. All right, anywho. It is now time for buy or sell. All right, so all three of you guys are going to give your answer to this one. However, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of have to shorten the answer since all three of you are involved here. And, Steven, I will start with you. College, NFL, or the mixed question?
College.
Why do you think trap games are so common in college football? After seeing teams such as Oklahoma fall to Iowa State and Michigan fall to Michigan State, granted, in-state rivalry game, a little bit of added leverage into that one there. Why do you feel that so many teams fall into these kind of trap games? Not really buy or sell per se, but, you know.
Right. Teams sort of, they see, we're playing an unranked team, so we're going to beat them. We don't have to practice hard. We are. The thing is that their ego gets so big, they think they're just going to win this game. There's no doubt about it. And then they go into the game, and they don't win. They're like, damn, our ego's too big. We should have been more focused on this game.
Eric, your thoughts on trap games?
I mean, with how college football is set up a little bit scheduling-wise, and the fact that everybody hypes up a big rivalry game, no matter what it is. In the case for Oklahoma, everybody's looking for the Red River Shootout, Oklahoma, Texas. Oklahoma, big and bad, may field a Heisman candidate. They figure, okay, our big time to shine is Texas. So they just figure, Iowa State, whatever, we've got to focus on Texas. Iowa State, the week before, boom, they set the perfect trap and say, hey, we exist in the Big 12 too, come at us, goodbye. So I think with a lot of things, with the bigger the rivalry, the bigger the potential trap game, especially the game right before that rivalry. That just happens.
Oh, okay, under that line of thinking, I can understand that, but explain what happened to Michigan losing to Michigan State, though. They don't have such a trap game set up here. Michigan State's the biggest in-state rival they have.
Yeah.
Well, true, and I will give that, because outside of Ohio State, Michigan State is the Wolverines' greatest rival. Third, especially when they played each other, they were Notre Dame. I think for that one, though, it was kind of a reminder of what happened 2 years ago in Ann Arbor, Michigan was just extremely focused instead of playing on their own game, just not having that happen all over again. And
didn't Spate get hurt either in this game or before it?
Before it
got
got
hurt in the
hurt.
last
Yes,
game.
I mean,
He got
but
hurt in the last game.
Yeah, but that makes a difference. You don't have your starting quarterback, number one. Number two, it's a rivalry game. Everything changes with rivalry games. How many times have we seen Texas absolutely suck and they beat Oklahoma? I mean, that stuff, it doesn't matter how well you prepare. If the other team comes in there one net more, and I think a lot of people are underestimating Michigan State. Let's not, maybe people are just underrating Michigan State.
Yeah, I think that plays into the whole little brother thing, especially in an in-state rivalry such as that.
I'm going to agree with that to an extent in regards to the little brother thing for Michigan State there, because there are a lot of people who are looking at Michigan State as if they're somehow inferior to Michigan this season. Michigan State's only loss this year, as I've pointed out when I did the top 25 blurb for them. You can find our top 25 online at w2mnet.com. I pointed out that their only loss this year is to a very good Notre Dame team.
Yeah.
So this is a Michigan
outranked. So yeah, I give you credit for that one.
This is a Michigan State team that is very quickly rising up. I believe they're third in the Big Ten East right now, and that's only because Ohio State and Penn State are also undefeated and have better overall winning percentages. I believe Ohio State is 5-1, Penn State is 6-0.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Michigan State has had a bye week already, so they're 4-1. All right, so
Well,
that
let me
takes
get
us-
my. Hold on, I didn't get my full.
Oh,
This whole thing, each game is two different reasons. The Oklahoma Iowa State game is because of the myth of the lack of parity in college football. Teams go into either lower rank, we see it all the time. I hate to bring it up to you, Harry, but I have to bring up Florida against Appalachian State.
it was Michigan and Appalachian State. It was
Oh,
Florida,
no.
It was
Yeah.
Florida, Georgia Southern.
Right, Florida and Georgia Southern. Yes, correct. So, games like that where the bigger name school goes in thinking, we saw it this year with LSU and Troy. They go in saying, oh, these guys aren't on our level. This is going to be a cakewalk. We're just going to walk in. Same thing happens even among the Power 5 schools, even among interconference games. If there's a lower rank, bottom feeder Power 5 school, the bigger school is going to go in thinking, okay, this is going to be a cakewalk, especially like you mentioned, Harry, when you're looking ahead to a big rivalry game like the Red River rivalry. So when you're looking ahead and you're overlooking an opponent, yeah, you're bound to get upset. On the flip side, in the Michigan State game, it's kind of quite the opposite, where the bigger school, while yes, they're kind of going in saying this should be a pretty easy game, it should be a game that we should win, they're also going in saying it's a rivalry game, we have to be on our guard. But the lower end, the underdog school, the little brother school, especially in an in-state rivalry like this, same would go with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, or I'd say Florida and Florida State, they're kind of on the same level.
I would say you could make the same argument for the situation similar when it comes to a rivalry like USC and UCLA over the last couple of times.
Oh,
that
yes.
UCLA
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely a good example. Oregon State is another good example. Washington State.
You raised a very valid point in that LSU Troy game as well, because of the fact that the Bayou Bengals knew that the Florida Gators were the next team on their schedule, so they were probably overlooking Troy.
Exactly.
Because they knew They knew that they were going to the swamp the following week. You mentioned also the little brother thing, and I want to kind of touch on that real quick as well, because I feel like there's something there with regards to the little brother syndrome. Because I think here in Big Ten country, Michigan State's not the only little brother situation here. I feel like Penn State kind of plays little brother to Ohio State.
That is true, but I was more so looking at in-state rivalries, you know.
And I understand that. I mean, at the same time, though, there aren't a ton of... Maybe Auburn, Alabama would be considered similar then?
Oh, Auburn, Alabama definitely would be one, which I think that's what happened a couple of years ago when Auburn went into Tuscaloosa and won at the last second.
The kick six in question.
Yes, precisely.
All right. Well, Brandon, since you got the last say in this one, I'm going to go and let you pick first here. Do you want the mixed question or do you want the NFL question?
I'll go NFL.
Buy or sell, Aaron Rodgers is the best clutch quarterback in NFL history.
I'm going to sell that just because, while yes, he's had a ton of clutch moments, he's only won one Super Bowl. And, you know, he hasn't had as many, like, while yes, he's had a lot of clutch moments in the regular season, it really, really counts when it's in the playoffs. And you have so many quarterbacks, you know, Steve Young, Joe Montana, you know, Tom Brady. I would even, you know, I know you're going to say I'm a homer, but, you know, Eli Manning even has had, you know, all of those clutch moments where they really step up and prove their worth in those moments. And I just don't know if he's had enough moments yet to put him... I mean, he's definitely a very good clutch quarterback. I just don't know if I would put him at that top level yet.
What about your opinion on the situation here, Eric? Buy or sell, Rodgers is the most clutch quarterback in NFL history.
I'm going to have to agree with Brandon, and I'm going to have to sell this, and it pains me to say, but until Rodgers can have another or even a big clutch moment in a Super Bowl, not just the playoffs, but the Super Bowl, TB12 up in Boston, he's got to be the guy. I mean, yes, I'm the first to say a few of those rings were thanks to the boot of Adam Vinatieri, but at the same time, he got him in position to make that happen. And lest we forget what happened in February, as much as I want to. Oh, God, so many angry tweets. But until Rodgers can pull off something even close to that, no, gotta sell.
Steven.
I'm buying it. I've seen a lot of clutch moments out of Aaron Rodgers, and I don't care about, so what's the Super Bowl title? Dan Marino has 0 Super Bowl titles. Dan Marino will be in the NFL Hall of Fame one day. Steve Young, 1 Super Bowl title. Will definitely be in the Hall of Fame one day. Brandon's dog will be in the Hall of Fame one day.
Isn't Marino already in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, he is.
Case in point, Eric. Super Bowls mean nothing to me. It's all about the regular season success. Rodgers had so many clutch moments, and no, he's the most clutch quarterback in NFL history. And people, you guys are gonna laugh. You guys are gonna say I'm nuts. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in NFL history. He does what Tom Brady does. He works with a bunch of different guys, and he can run the ball well. Brady can barely run the ball well.
Steve, I mean, seriously, you gotta stop hoarding the good stuff, okay? You need to sit down.
Yeah, you had me until that last statement there.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers isn't even the best quarterback in Green Bay Packer history.
Yeah, really.
What, Brett Favre is better than him?
Bart Starr.
Bart Starr.
Yep.
You got me there.
Come on.
I forgot about
Bart Starr is closer to Lynn Dickey than he is those other two guys. I mean,
I would compare Rodgers favorably against Brett Favre just because of his ability to not throw as many interceptions as Favre did. But when compared to Bart Starr, I don't think there's any comparison.
No, there is none.
that being said, all right, Eric, that takes me to you for the last question. You get to start us on the mixed question. You ready?
Ready?
Buy or sell, the schedules for both college and the NFL need to be shorter.
I'm going to buy this with a little bit of a caveat. I really think that for the regular season in the NFL, it's not too bad. But what they need to do is two things. They need to shorten the preseason, even by if they're doing it just one game, and figure out some sort of agreement. And go back to what they did up until, I would say, circa 2000, and begin the regular season Labor Day weekend. I mean, if you think about it, if you have great matchups, especially on Sunday and Sunday night, nobody's going to work Monday. What's everybody going to do? They're going to come out to the games. That way, you start your regular season a week earlier, end it a week earlier, and you don't have your Super Bowl bleeding into February. So, for the NFL, shorten it for some small tweaks. And for college, I definitely buy it because now that you have the playoff, now that you're going to, let's face it, in a few years' time, at least expand the playoff, you're going to want less regular season games, especially if you're going to keep a lot of your bowl games around, which the way cities are acting about for having bowl games, you are. So shortening it and maybe going back to the old school 10-game regular season, I wouldn't have much of a problem with that.
I mean, at the very least, you could be looking at going back to an 11-game regular season.
Yeah, I would be fine with 11, especially if you have like an extra Saturday or so within that designated window on the calendar. That's fine.
So,
but why are we calling for it to be shortened? I mean, what is it? I'm just asking, like, what does the length of the season have to do with anything here?
Yeah, I'm with Sean on this one.
I feel like the amount of football that these guys play over the course of both preseason and regular season is a lot of what's contributing towards the fact that these guys are breaking down at younger and younger ages and suffering these career-ending injuries and in some cases these season-ending injuries. Some of them are flukes. The way Odell Beckham Jr. got tackled was a fluke. He got bent back across his ankle. There was nothing that could be done about a situation like that. But there are other things too, like with a guy that's going to overwork his going to be overworking his muscles from excessive reps and excessive gameplay. That's going to lead to more and more concussions, going to lead to more and more shoulder injuries, going to lead to more and more knee injuries, going to lead to more and more cases of CTE, chronic traumatic.
Okay, here's where you're fallacious. This is a phallic statement here. This is happening early in the season. So it's obviously not having to do anything with the length of the season. It's having to do with them not getting enough time in the preseason and not having the right kind of practices because there's so much no touching. Don't touch me. Don't tackle me. Don't do this.
And you're losing the 2 days.
NFL, and that's why I say for the NFL, you only need to tweak to shorten the preseason so that way you give more time, more scrimmages, more practices, more things to where, yes, not full force live hitting, but more live hitting, getting it in and kind of getting your body ready for it. Now, as far as the length of the regular season in the NFL, that's just fine. And for college, I say it's a different animal, especially because you're going to have your playoff going now farther and farther into January.
But they want that. That's the point, though. They want that. The longer you're sitting there talking about the season, the better it is for that.
They want that, but at the same time, that's one of the main things of why the playoff took so long to be implemented, having it bleed potentially into another semester. Now, if it's shortened to even to where if it starts a little bit later, okay. that eliminates the argument at least a teeny bit.
All right, Brandon, you haven't officially chimed in with your answer here. Buy or sell that they need to make the schedule shorter?
I'm going to sell this for the NFL. I think they've got it pretty much just about right. You know, it starts at the beginning of September, ends at the end of December. So, you know, it works. It works on a time frame level. For college, I would buy this with one caveat, and that is that you expand the playoffs. If you're not going to expand the playoffs, then there's no point. But if that's the only way that you will expand the playoff, then do it.
Expanding the
Steven.
playoffs is going to mean way more than the season. That's got to do with way more stuff that's going to be. They would take a whole podcast to talk about.
Well, I know that, but I'm just saying, you know, if you're not going to expand the playoffs, then there's no point in reducing the season.
I'm sure playoff expansion is a topic we'll cover in more full form on another episode.
I just don't buy the whole, like, why they have to take a whole month between there's weeks in there they could cut if they wanted to not make it to where you're waiting a whole freaking month and a half to play the playoffs.
Well, the reason for that is not because of the season, it's because of all the bowls now, and they're trying to fit all of those bowls in.
And I honestly think if you expand the playoff, you're going to get rid of some of those bowl games. I mean,
which is why they don't want to.
Well, honestly, I'm just going to touch on this because I know we could go on this for hours, but you give this maybe a decade, possibly a little bit longer, you're going to see the top brass at the college football playoff look more, not so much at the FCS level, but the Division 2 and 3 levels of their system and say, okay, how far can we really take this and at the same time make it work?
Yeah, I'd much rather see them cut some bowls out and have meaningful games than have this many glorified exhibition games.
Especially when you have teams that have 5 wins
Yep.
at a bowl game now.
Yeah,
No, it's just
but they
like
won't
that.
do it though. They won't do it unless we have more seasons like last year, where we have 5 teams, 6 teams that can get in. If you have a lot of years where it's 4 teams and there's no argument, they're not going to do it. You have to give them a reason to do it. Just why the reason why we had the playoff is because the BCS had too many kinks in it.
And like I said, to say that more seasons like that won't happen. There was still even a little bit of an argument just last year. And even before that, it's like, huh?
And not to mention that, you know, right now, all of the non-Power 5 schools and, you know, even some of the Power 5 schools, cough, cough, Iowa, but, you know, they're playing basically a glorified exhibition season because they have no chance in hell of getting in the playoff.
See, I think you guys are minimalizing the importance of some of the secondary bowl games. Some of these bowl games whose history goes back 50, 60, 70 years.
So, well, the bigger bowls, you know, the New Year's.
Okay, don't get me wrong. I would have no issues with the Birmingham Bowl going away and being gone forever. I'd have no issue with losing the Idaho Potato Bowl because, frankly, I can't even tell you who was in the Idaho Potato Bowl last year. And I have a college football magazine sitting directly in front of me at the present moment.
Yeah, and I get with your New Year's 6 and even some of your lesser, as you say, historic ones. Like, I live here in Jacksonville. Everybody, and I'm still going to call it the Gator Bowl. The Gator Bowl was always a big thing going back as far as I remember, right around New Year's time. But for some of those, fine. But do you really need a bowl game in the Bahamas?
No.
Why not?
And especially not when it's being played at a soccer stadium.
Thank you. Or do you really need a game in St. Petersburg played on Tropicana Field?
Oh, that was the best. I love that.
Or a game. I mean, I like it in the sense of just seeing it again before baseball season starts. But do you really need a game at Yankee Stadium?
Yeah, and they took away the game at RFK too, which that's a whole nother story for a whole nother.
Well, I mean, they're going to take off RFK pretty soon, so.
Sean.
All right, gentlemen, this is getting away from us. Let's go ahead and Steven, you haven't said your piece about the whole bowl game situation, about the whole bowl game and NFL schedule situation here, so I'm going to let you speak here, and then we'll move on because this is getting away from us.
Yeah, I'm selling that because why would I want to see less exciting college football? I mean, the first couple of weeks we've seen upset after upset. You see Oklahoma upsetting Ohio State at the Shoe. Iowa State just upset the third-ranked Sooners at Norman. Just imagine if these games are taken away from us. I think the sport of football would be a lot less exciting. So I'd rather see more football, but I think 16 weeks in the NFL and 12 weeks in college football is enough.
All right, then.
Yep.
Let me ask you guys this then real quick here, because I know I said I wanted to move on here. What did you guys think about adding a second bye week to the NFL season?
If you start the season a week earlier, the Thursday before Labor Day instead of the Thursday after, I'm fine with that. Because the NFL did do this once, if I remember right, way back in the day.
Go ahead, Brandon.
I think the only way that would work, and it's kind of counter to what we're talking about, but the only way that I think 2 bye weeks would work, and, this may actually reduce things while not cutting anything, is actually expanding the season another week, having it 18 weeks, and then having 2 bye weeks. So you're still playing the same amount of games, but maybe not as many in one fell swoop.
Isn't that what they said when they were planning to make it 18 games? Was the problem was they had to figure out how to do another bye week?
Yep.
Well, I mean, you could figure out a way to do it.
Well,
but not with 16 games. You couldn't. You'd have to do exactly what happened with Miami and Tampa Bay, and then that bye week doesn't help anybody. You have to start at week 1.
Well, I was actually going to kind of touch on that here. What if it was like Premier League style where there was a specific week in the season, maybe the halfway point, where everybody is off? There is no football.
I mean, it would work in the sense of, the players and the safety and all of that. I just know that because they wouldn't want to lose a whole week of revenue, they would never do it.
Right.
I'd imagine it would be like Christmas week or something would be the...
But that's way too late in the season.
Yeah, I was just thinking that as well. That would be.
I would put it like in the middle of the season, but that would put us right in like Thanksgiving territory.
Or even before Thanksgiving, would probably be closer to Halloween. Because I know when Steven and I have been going through this with the Arena Football League, they decided right in the middle of the season, the weekend of July 4th, it's a league-wide bye. And honestly, I think with that sort of convenient holiday, it works for them. But for the NFL, you don't have any convenient holidays like that. To where it's like, okay, holiday weekend, boom, nobody plays.
In fairness, the Arena League has like 5 teams right now.
Well, they did this before when they had more than 5 teams. So, yeah, there was...
I mean, the only thing I could think of, but this wouldn't exactly work because I don't think Dallas and Detroit would want to give up their monopolies, is to have the bye week the week before Thanksgiving and then have Thanksgiving as a full football day.
Hold on. Monopoly? It's not a monopoly. It's they choose to do it. You think that those teams want to play that third NFL game? They don't. They're forced by the league to do it.
You don't think that they like having all eyes on them that week? Especially
no, but it's not a monopoly.
Most people don't care about until Thanksgiving.
Come on. people will watch the Cowboys. It doesn't matter if they're 0-15. They
No,
still break
I
records.
didn't say the Cowboys. I said Detroit.
Well, technically,
Well,
you said both, but
No,
It
I said,
depends
well, I
on
said
if they're good or
especially
not.
Detroit.
all right. Again, this is a conversation we could definitely continue much further into the show, but unfortunately, we do have other stuff to get to. So, shall we move on?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, we can definitely come back to this and touch on it again at another time, and I would be okay with that. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on here, and let's continue with Get It Together. Brandon, you were supposed to put the Giants here, but you kind of went on your Giants rant a little bit earlier.
I went on my Giants rant earlier, so I'll go with another team. I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I know the Eagles have been playing a little bit better this year, but, I mean, come on, really? You lose to the Eagles at home? That's a big reason, I'm sure, for why they picked up Adrian Peterson, and it's a good move for them because that will help them get it together. So, Cardinals, well done.
Okay, see, I think you're biased against Philadelphia here, being a Giants fan. The Eagles are actually a very good team this year so far.
Yeah, they are.
So far, but I feel like the Eagles are a lot like, the Bills or the Dolphins, where, you're kind of just waiting for that other shoe to drop.
Hey, speaking of the Dolphins, hey, Miami Dolphins coaching staff, get it together. You had to know that this topic was going to come up at some point tonight, gentlemen.
Oh, God, yes.
God.
One of Miami's offensive line coach, if I do believe correctly, has been put into rehab after letting a video surface of him snorting a line of cocaine before a training session.
I hear the 80s. Come on.
I hear Pepsi actually pulled their sponsorship because they found out the Dolphins prefer Coke. That being said, how do you not realize that one of your coaches has that kind of a problem? In what universe are you that oblivious that you don't realize that, oh my God, one of our coaches has a cocaine problem? We should probably do something about this before it becomes national news.
Hold on.
I hate to bring it up, but it's the same way that Penn State didn't know that one of their coaches had a certain
Jerry
other
Sandusky.
problem.
Oh, he knew who he was talking about. He intentionally didn't want to say the name. Go ahead, Sean. You had something to say.
No, I'm just saying, like, how many people have drug problems we don't know about? That's kind of wrong to say that that's the coaching staff's problem.
Yeah,
I feel like...
And I'm just going to say, look, apparently there was a stripper of some sort in the room. First of all, he wasn't doing it right. Second of all, this isn't the 80s. It's not part of Miami's image anymore, at least I thought.
Third of all, are you that stupid that you let somebody film you while you do it? I'm just saying.
No, he
Fourth of all, it is part of Miami's interest. The University of Miami Hurricanes say hello.
Hey, again, 80s, and we still won national championships, thank you very much.
Well, technically, Miami's involved in the other sport problem with legal things, so...
We ain't bringing that up right now. That's innocent until proven guilty. I ain't saying
no. Come on.
Hey, Eric. Get it together.
Honestly, I am going to give something of an honorable mention to Troy for what they're doing against South Alabama because, my God, they're better than that. But Jaguars. Sorry. Okay, yeah, as if I didn't hear enough of that over the past week. My Get It Together, look, Ed Orgeron, you have a quirky name. You have a good history. You know the SEC. You were the first $1 million a year, one of the first $1 million a year coaches, especially in the SEC. Really? LSU brought you in because you're supposed to be doing something relevant. You're supposed to be keeping everything going. You're supposed to be competing with the likes of Alabama and holding yourselves in the SEC West. They did not bring you in to lose to Troy. Really, Ed, think about this carefully. If you want to stay employed in Baton Rouge, New Orleans is not far away. See a voodoo priestess if you have to. I personally will not judge. Either way, you, good sir, need to get it together.
Well, I mean, they did bounce back by going to the Swamp and winning, much though I hate to admit that.
Yeah, but
Ben Hill Griffin is not an easy place to play, and they did come in there and more or less hand it to Florida for most of the game.
True.
Final score was deceiving on this game here. It was a lot more of a LSU victory than 17-16. Steven, get it together.
I have to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers here because not just because Big Ben threw 5 picks against the Jaguars, which by the way, Jacksonville is actually doing something well this year. They actually spent millions in the defense actually doing something, so I'm impressed by them. But the fact that they have Big Ben, they have Antonio Brown, they have Le'Veon Bell, they have Martavis Bryant there. Why is this team falling so far behind some of the best teams in the AFC? I had them playing New England in the AFC title game. Of course, now I don't have New England in the Super Bowl this year. But the Steelers are one of the top seeds in the AFC going into the season. They're not showing it now. They need to start showing it. They need to get it together.
All right, so there's your get-it-togethers for this week. LSU's coach Ed Orgeron. Brandon with an honorable mention to the Giants. Myself with the Miami coaching staff. And Steven with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I hear a train a-coming. All aboard! Steven?
All aboard Lane Train, everybody. I don't know where I believe it was on ESPN or something.
Stop. Let me finish my statement here, and then you can go ahead and gloat, because I actually am going to do something you will not hear me do very often on this show.
Bring it.
When it comes to the Conference USA, anyway, Steven, you may have been right about Lane Kiffin.
Oh, I know.
I said that Florida Atlantic was on upset alert against Old Dominion. Yeah, well, about that. 58-28, Florida Atlantic, 8 rushing touchdowns.
Good Jeebus! 8? 8.
Including four by their running back. All right, Steven, go ahead. Chugga away.
As I was saying, I believe that I saw on ESPN last Saturday. Florida Atlantic has like I might be wrong on this, but they have like a 98% chance to win the Conference USA title this year. So yeah, it's looking pretty good for Lane Kiffin in year 1.
Well, to me, their big game's still to come up. They haven't played their big game yet, because they have 2 games coming up that I think will be important here. One is against the Conference USA West leading North Texas, Mean Green. Hi, Sean. How you doing?
Yeah, hello.
And the other one will probably decide the Conference USA East. That'll be a Thursday night game at the beginning of November when they host Marshall.
That's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah.
Not do they host Marshall? They're at Louisiana Tech the following week, who is traditionally a Conference USA power as well. So,
oh, you mean they're at 30-93? Okay.
Okay, but
Nice.
Okay, but you guys are no Mississippi State.
That's a big difference
Which
between Conference USA and SEC.
Well, it's also ironic that I say that because Florida Atlantic actually has more wins than Mississippi State does currently. 3-2. For those of you,
but I mean, do you really count a win? No, I'm gonna shut up. I had to stop myself before I said something real stupid.
I will say this much here. For those of you wondering, the Lane Train currently sits at 3-3, 2-0 in the conference for plus 50-point differential. They are the current Conference USA East leaders by half a game over the aforementioned Marshall Thundering Herd. I'm telling you right now, Stephen, that game against Marshall is going to decide Conference USA East.
It's going to be a good one.
I have a question for you guys. Are you serious? On this show, very rarely.
We still need to get the tally.
Yes. What is going on with Anaya here, Sean? You're killing us. We need our sound effect.
No, I was talking to you, Harry. We still need the to see what everyone is.
I thought you said talent. I didn't.
No,
you said
tally.
Yeah, I avoid all things Tala related, especially when it comes to Tallahassee's. I'll have to go back into the archives and make sure I listen to those segments. I'll have those for you guys next week, I promise, okay?
And this Easy Joke of the Week brought to you by Baby Bear.
Now it's Baby Bell, it's not Kraft anymore.
Can it be sponsored by Sargento? They need the positive publicity after the E. coli breakout.
Yeah, they had their chance. That was last week.
Can we stop naming sponsors that we don't really have so we don't get sued? Thank you. Because guess who gets sued? Me! So let's not.
I actually said that they gave us money, Sean.
If Night Owl Cookies would step up and actually sponsor us, I mean, they can help with some of the legal fees.
See, that's more realistic, so I'll allow it.
Maybe we'll be sponsored by the Young Bucks Funko Pop figures.
Maybe. Maybe.
All right, let's go ahead and get into it, gentlemen. Are you serious for the week? Eric, lead us off, college football.
You know, in the Navy, you can put your mind at ease. In the Navy, you can sail the 7 seas.
Oh, Jesus.
But in the Navy, you're not going to win a football game this weekend. I mean, as much as I talk about Memphis, I have to give them some sort of credit for what they've done. And oh, by the way, the alignment gods put you in the American Athletic Conference West for some unknown reason. Yeah, you're going to go to Memphis. You're going to walk there. You're going to have your feet 10 feet off a Beal, and you're going to go home losers.
Well, let's see. UCF just made Memphis look like, you know.
And you honestly don't think the Tigers are going to be mad?
Can I just point out the fact that Memphis just put up 70 last weekend, Sean?
I'm just saying, when UCF played them, they made them look bad. So.
Well, that's UCF. That's a difference, and I'm still slightly bitter at them. It's cool.
That's going to be a fun game to watch. It's going to be like about, if they don't score each team about 50 points, there's something wrong.
Oh, no. Much like the Pac-12, nobody plays defense in the American Athletic. Brandon, who you got? College football. Are you serious?
My Are You Serious this week is Utah goes in and destroys the Trojans.
I could actually see that because I think Utah is going to be pissed off about what happened against Stanford.
Woo! Yeah. Ooh. That one ended ugly.
Steven, you're up. College football. Are you serious?
Yeah, Brandon just stole mine because all these games this week suck. Like, all these games are so crappy, and none of these unranked teams are going to beat a ranked team, except Utah beating USC in the Coliseum.
Disagree. And here's why. You know how we talked about rivalry games and trap games earlier in the show?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one specific rivalry game that was mentioned in the Red River Shootout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I wouldn't see Texas.
Texas is going to beat Oklahoma.
That's not.
I just don't see it just because they're going to be so pissed at losing last week to Iowa State that they're
but Texas is coming. And I understand what you're saying, Brandon, that they're going to be pissed off about losing to Iowa State, and I get that. Believe me, I do. But at the same time, Texas is coming off of back-to-back victories in the Big 12 against Iowa State, the team that beat Oklahoma, and going into and taking on K-State last week and defeating them as well. This is a Texas.
I think it will be a close game.
This is a Texas team that is currently leading the Big 12. Well, tied for the lead,
great.
Still.
I was considering picking that one as well, but I just think after that loss, I think Oklahoma is going to want to get some revenge, especially considering it's a rivalry game. They're going to take their anger out on Texas and just wallop them.
You heard it here first, Texas 27-21.
I'm going to reverse that, or I'll go 28-21, Oklahoma.
All right, we'll see what happens this weekend. All right, Eric, that brings us back around to the NFL. Are you serious?
Okay, I've got to look and double check for my NFL upset because, yeah, some of the lines this week I was like, okay, really? What? Vegas, what are you doing? What are you thinking? What, there was just something about that just wasn't entirely right. So, I am going to need a quick second.
Well, while he searches then, Steven, why don't you go ahead and go first here?
So back in August, everybody thought the Jets were going to finish 0-16, and this was going to be the worst teams in NFL history.
Oh my
possibly worse
God!
than the Lions. And here we are sitting at week 6 now. Yeah, the Jets are 3-2, and they don't look too bad. And meanwhile, New England, this is the worst Brady team and. This is the worst team in Brady's era.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Let him say it.
The Jets over the Patriots.
The Jets.
Oh, my God.
Sean, get your drop button ready. Ah!
Steven, I swear, if I have to put up with the New
Wow.
York this whole week, I am going to give him your phone number. Let him deal with you. You deal those phone calls, because I'm sure as hell not. No.
I'll have to admit, Steven, I actually considered picking that as my Are You Serious for this week. But it's the Jets. I've been around the Jets for my whole life. I know that the Jets just do not play well against the Patriots.
Yeah,
But the
they
Patriots
do.
are playing
They
well.
always play them well.
They beat him in overtime in 2015. Eric Decker, baby.
That's true.
So what you're saying is Jets gonna Jets?
It wouldn't surprise.
You know what it is? I think Brandon's just angry that the Jets have more wins than the Giants do this year.
Oh, you know he
I'm
is.
so glad I'm not in New York right now, because the Jets fans would be insufferable.
Trust me. They don't have to be in New York to be insufferable. I speak from experience.
Allow me to add to what Eric just said there. I assure you, it's not just the ones in New York that are insufferable.
Oh, I know this, but it would be even
This
worse.
is one of those times I wish Randy was still in our chat, man. That'd be amazing. You know he would be going off on the...
Yeah, well, he's not, so... All right, moving on. Steve, what you got? Oh, wait. Steven just gave... I'm special. Brandon, you're up.
I have the Lions going over the Saints this week.
Not an upset.
No.
Not upset at all.
On ESPN, they have the Saints up.
Yeah, the
They have
Saints
the Saints as a favorite.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess we're going by the line.
Technically, yeah, that is.
I was going by line, so
I don't follow lines. Lines are for paper.
I agree with.
when it comes to football.
I agree with you guys that it would not, that most people would not consider that an upset, but it is. They are thinking that the Saints will win. Granted, it is in New Orleans, so that also plays a role.
All right, I will say this much. If it's, technically speaking, if we're going to go by the line there, then yes, it's an upset. That being said, this is a Saints team that has been playing very well since they faced Carolina in a game that I called a couple of weeks ago. So, in In New Orleans, with the Saints defense playing as well as it has been recently, I would say that maybe you might have an argument here. But in my opinion, the Lions are arguably the most talented team in the NFC North right now.
I would say they are. I'd say them and the Packers are 1-2.
Well, yeah, obviously. We saw what the Vikings were capable of. They barely beat the Bears on Monday Night Football. And the Bears are just awful.
I mean, that kind of leads into mine. And like I said, furthering with Brandon's sentiment, there are some of these to where I'm like, what is Vegas doing? Are they trying to give away easy money? And that's kind of where I'm going with mine in a game on Thursday night. I get both teams are playing well, the Eagles and the Panthers, and I know home field being worth a field goal, but with the line at 3.5, that is just way too tempting for me. And looking through all of them, I'm like, yeah, this one is a good bet. Eagles over the Panthers.
Again?
I was considering that, but
No, I don't think that's an
the
upset.
Panthers-
Yeah, from a football perspective, I don't think that's an upset.
Yeah, but again, I don't think it's an upset. That's why I'm wondering what Vegas is doing. If you're looking for a teeny bit of free cash this weekend, this should be a game you should look at very, very closely. And with the over-under at 46, that's another potential good bet. I'm just saying.
All right, I'm actually going to step out on just as thin of a branch as Steven just did. Big Ben bounces back as Pittsburgh beats Kansas City in Arrowhead.
Oh, no.
That's
Oh, no.
good. That
He
is
called
good.
it. Oh,
Oh,
my.
wow.
That's good. That's good.
Mark that tape.
Are you really serious there, Harry?
Yes, 100%. Big Ben throws 3 touchdown passes, and the Steelers' defense finally becomes the first team to shut down Kareem Hunt as Pittsburgh wins 28-21.
This is more like the Harry is just desperate to shut Robert up in the chat.
And put some extra brownie points, which I forgive him for under the circumstances.
I have a girlfriend that's a Steelers fan and a Robert Taylor who needs to shut the hell up.
Yeah, one of my exes was a Steelers fan, so honestly, I would have said the exact same thing. I can't fault Harry for picking that one.
Well, I have an interesting one. You
Oh
know,
yeah, we did go to Sean for either college.
He didn't get one. He didn't get it on Monday night, but I think he gets it this time in his away debut for the Bears. Mitchell Trubisky and the Chicago Bears go into Baltimore and get the win.
That's nice. That's a good one.
That's an interesting selection, especially with how good Baltimore's been looking this year.
Also, watch out for
especially
Monday night.
especially on defense. Whew.
And,
Yeah, they looked really good on defense. That could
Yeah,
be a
they
defensive
put it-
battle.
They put it on Oakland.
Yeah, but this is also the same Baltimore team. I mean, 44-7.
Okay, that's fair.
And the Bears defense looked really good. I also say watch out for Monday. Mariota's return could get spoiled.
Yeah, with that Bears-Ravens game, I mean, if you're looking at another one of those that could be 3-2 for a while,
Yeah.
or another one that could potentially end up in a tie, Sean.
Seriously, how the hell does 3-2 at halftime happen?
Because Bradford was that bad.
Yes.
So was
Yes.
Trubisky.
Yeah.
His only touchdown pass was on a tip drill.
Hey, that happens, and then he had the cool 2-point conversion. So don't be hating.
All right, the naked bootleg on the 2-point conversion was impressive. I'll give him that.
That wasn't just a naked bootleg. That was a reverse pitch back to him.
Yeah.
Jesus, there was a lot going on that I missed on that play then.
Yeah, that was.
I was about to say.
And to be fair, they have like no receivers in Chicago. I mean,
Yeah. And the only decent receiver that they had in Chicago left for Philadelphia last year. His name was Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah.
And then they cut Victor Cruz, who they brought in the preseason.
I
Hey,
have
wonder
no
if
idea
the
why they
Giants-
didn't re-sign him either. Like,
I wonder if the Giants could use a Victor Cruz.
yeah.
Yes,
Do the
yes,
salsa
yes.
again.
Yeah, they could sign him back. I wouldn't mind him coming back.
I still don't think any salsa dancing is going to help their case this year at 0-5.
No.
But hey,
No.
stranger things have happened. Do we have anything else to touch on before we get out of here, gentlemen?
I think we're covered.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much good.
If I'm not
Hey,
mistaken, I'm trying to say that if I'm not mistaken, the Giants do have rookie Travis Rudolph on their practice squad. Maybe they call him
Yeah.
up.
Oh, he's already been called
That's
up.
good.
Oh, good.
Travis is Kyle's little brother?
Ha! Brother from another
they could
mother,
also
maybe.
sign their first round wide receiver pick, which now was a huge blunder in their decision making this season.
All right, so let's go ahead and get some plugs in before we officially step out of here. Hey, Brandon,
Yes,
your return to pay-per-view podcasting was this past Sunday, was it not?
yes, it was.
Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody about that real quick?
Yeah, if you guys want to hear my talking about Hell in a Cell, which is if you guys have been longtime listeners to Wrestling to the Max, I go especially brutal when it comes to stipulation pay-per-views, and unlike a couple of years ago where I buried Hell in a Cell to the ground, this year was actually a very good Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and you can hear my praise for it on this week's edition.
Indeed, it's Brandon joining Gary Vaughn and Sean Garmer for the W2M Hell in a Cell pay-per-view review. Is Paul there too, or did he fall asleep
Paul,
on that
actually. Gary was not there.
one? Oh, so Gary was out because of just returning from the cruise. I got them mixed up.
Yes.
Okay. So Paul stayed awake for that one. Good for him.
Yes.
You know what Paul didn't stay awake for? He didn't stay awake for this week's Raw review, so myself and Gary handled that. In addition, myself and Liz Puglisi handled the SmackDown Live and 205 Live reviews. You can find all those on the W2Mnet.com website as well. Steven, where can they find you elsewhere?
You can find me on the SCU show every week here on W2Mnet.com, and as well as Eric and I do a couple of arena football podcasts. Well, me and Eric and I do an arena football podcast during the spring and summer. This week in the AFL, hopefully might return next year, depending on how things go with the collective bargaining agreement with the Arena Football League.
Dun dun dun.
Which is code for there might not be an Arena Football League after this bargaining agreement.
Yeah,
next season.
It's looking kind of dicey. I'm not gonna lie.
To be fair, there are a vast majority of American football fans who have forgotten the Arena League exists at this point.
That's right.
Eric, anywhere else they can find you besides over there with Steven on Inside the Arena?
Yes, I happen to be on Inside the Arena. I am on Soccer to the Max, which, not so much of a good week.
Joke!
Yeah, hey,
The ultimate trap game failing. There.
And I will say it now to introduce to this audience. I told people, remember 89. Nobody did. So there's that. We actually have a new episode that we will be recording in the very near future because MLS is creeping up on Decision Day. So you can find me there, my various writings on W2Mnet.com, Inside the Arena, on Twitter at SquidSportsHead, when I'm in the right frame of mind, point of viewer, which, if everything goes well this weekend, Sean knows a bit of what I'm talking about. You might get an episode Saturday night. Who knows?
In addition,
In addition to what you should be paying attention to for this weekend as well is the W2M Top 25 rankings. Traditionally, they come out on Sunday, usually Sunday afternoonish. You can find those over on the W2M Net website as well. So, for our producer, Sean Garmer, the traditional producer / participant tonight, Erik Watkins, my co-hosts, Brandon Biskobing and Stephen III, I'm Harry Broadhurst. This has been the Kickoff, Week 6 here on the W2M Network. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next Wednesday night.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.